Carrie. I'm a physical therapist, and I want to show you a real mini core exercise that you can work on. Again, the core is really from here all the way down to your thighs, because it's all the muscles that connect into your torso that make up your core. And so when we think of core, it's not just the belly button, it's really that whole area. And it's really important to learn how to breathe while you're doing your core, because just by breathing, I can take a big deep breath in, and as I blow it all the way out and keep blowing, my core is actually pulling in and towards the back of my spine. Again, big deep breath in, my belly expands, and as I exhale, I pull my belly in towards the back of my spine. Now, a lot of people do core and they think that they have to have a pelvic tilt to do it. And when you tilt your pelvis to do it, I don't want to walk around in a pelvic tilt the whole time. So it's important to know what pelvic neutral is. It's not all the way forward with an arch back, but it's not all the way tucked back either. It's halfway in between. And it's important to also not have your shoulder blades way up to your ears. So the first core exercise is breathing. Actually, works really well. But the next one is called single dead bug. It's a little strange name, but it's because a dead bug sits like this. And I'm going to show you how to do it one side at a time. So your hands are going to be on your floor. By pressing on the floor, you automatically activate your core. So just with your feet hips distance apart, lined up with your sits bones, and your hands on the floor, and your head in a neutral position, you can take a big deep breath in and exhale. And as you exhale, press your hands to the floor and you'll start to feel your stomach muscles tighten. Without arching your back or changing your back position, you're already starting to work your core. So maybe that's where you're at and that's where you need to work on for core stability. So the next one that we're going to work on is the single dead bug. So it's one hand is pressed onto the floor, stabilizing. The other hand comes together towards knee, and you're going to reach the opposite arm and leg away from each other. So together, and I press my hand into my knee, and that activates my core as well as pressing my hand to the floor, and then I reach out. Sometimes people get popping in their hip. Usually popping in that sense can be because of instability. There's other reasons for it, but if it keeps popping every time I do it, then what you can do is just not go so low. So you can start by keeping it right to the level of the opposite leg. So I'm pressing my hand, I'm breathing in and out as I reach out. The lower I go, the harder it is to stabilize into my spine, but the more connected in this diagonal that I am. And then I can go to the opposite side. So again, breathe in and then breathe out and reach out. And it's important, again, that my knee isn't rolling in or out, but it's staying pointed straight towards the ceiling. And it's not so much about just lowering it down, it's really about reaching. So it's called opposition, reaching my hand away to the wall and my foot to the other wall, and that's what activates my core even more. A lot of people are used to doing sit-ups, but most people don't do them correctly. So an exercise that I like to teach people is how to do a half roll down. So in this position, you're going to sit up nice and straight, hands behind your legs. My hands aren't really holding my body upright. They're just pressing into my hamstrings, and my hamstrings are pressing into them so that I get the right muscle mobility. And what we're going to do is take a deep breath in. And then as we exhale, we're going to roll down one vertebrae at a time till I get to the end of where my hands can't go. My hands, again, aren't what's holding me up. It's my belly that's staying into my core. So I'm going to move my hands just so you can, or move one hand so you can see. Okay, big deep breath in. And then exhale, and I'm going to roll down. And as I roll down, I'm really pulling my belly muscle in. And I'm not getting all the way to the floor but I'm getting to the point where I can come right back up again. So I used to teach Pilates for 2 years, and Pilates is one of the best core strengthening exercises out there, especially mat Pilates, because you can't cheat on the mat. The floor gives you a resistance and a measurement that you can't work against. So one of the exercises is a roll up. And so it's a big deep breath in, and it's an exhale as you roll all the way up to touch your toes. But most people really have a hard time, so that's why I like to teach the roll down. Most often when people do a sit-up, they have their knees bent and they tuck their feet under something, and they're actually using their hip flexors, because it's easy for me to flex my hips to come up, but it's a lot harder for me to use my core and to shorten this to pull myself all the way up to upright. So the roll down works to really work on being able to then use the right muscles to come back up. So hands behind your knees, back nice and straight, big deep breath in, and then an exhale as you roll all the way down as far as you can till your arms are out straight. Big deep breath in. Exhale as you come back up to sitting. My arms aren't doing the work. It's my belly that's doing the work. The next one that I like is on your belly. And this is called prone position. Sometimes for people, if they have a big arch in their back, this is hard to stabilize, or if their hip flexors or the front of their hips are tight, it's too hard to work against the floor to do this. So I'll show you another way. The first one, your hand is under one forehead, and then the other arm is alternating up. And I'm going to raise my belly in towards the back of my spine as I breathe towards the floor, and lift my leg and my arm up and lower. And I can do 10 on either side. It's not how high up I go. It's about how to keep this neutral, keeping my belly pulled in to be able to lift my arm and leg up off the floor. So I'm going to show you the other side. And lower. As I breathe out, again, my belly's pulling towards the back of my spine as I'm lifting up. If that's a little hard because of tightness, then being on your hands and knees has more challenges because it's less stable. My knees are directly underneath my hip. My hands are directly underneath my shoulder. And I'm going to have, and my hips are hips distance apart. I'm going to bring my elbow and knee together, and then I'm going to reach it straight out, together and apart. And it's about how much I'm reaching, not how high I'm lifting. So it's not about arching your back, it's about really stretching that out. And I want to make sure that my shoulders aren't lowered like this, but I'm pushing through the floor. So together and apart. Together and apart. And I'm really reaching with that leg. And this hip is still 90 degrees and this knee is 90 degrees. So I don't want to go back to make more stability. I want to stay so my shoulder and my hip are in the right angles. And from the front, it'll look like that. Okay, so my knees are hips distance and my shoulders are shoulders distance apart. This will help to develop your core stability. Now I do like plank, but instead of plank, I'm going to show you something a little bit different. You're going to get in that kneeling position. My toes are tucked under. My hips are forward, so they're directly over my knee. And I'm going to take a ball, a weight, or actually no weight to start. And I'm going to make a square. As I make that square, my body wants to turn, but I'm going to work really hard to not let my body turn. And I'm going to start counterclockwise, and then I'm going to go clockwise. When I add the weight, it just adds a little bit more challenge. But again, I want to make sure my shoulder blades aren't up here. I'm squeezing them down. I want to make sure my hips over my knee, so I'm not back here. My belly's pulled in, and I'm not arching my back here. But again, my belly's pulled in because I'm breathing out with these exercises, and I can still talk as I pull this in, and I'm making a square. My shoulder blades are working as my back is working. So those are some core exercises that might be a little different than what you've learned before, but I just think they're really important because they help to work your hip, your shoulders, and your whole core in between. The other one you can do in the kneeling position is the chop and lift. And that works on this diagonal as well. So oftentimes we just don't move in bending and straightening. We move in diagonals, and we should be able to move in diagonals. So reaching and working to both sides gets that chop and lift. Then to make it harder, and this was in my hip video as well, is to be in half kneeling. Now this makes the balance a little bit harder, and I want to make sure my hips are level so that I'm not hiking my hip up, but they're level on both sides here. And then I can do either diagonal and make that more challenging. If I want to add even more challenge, I can add a resistance band. To me, the band is the hardest to do. So in that side spot, my hip is directly over my knee. My knee is bent to 90 degrees on this side. Again, my belly's working, and I'm coming from here to there. Now, the band wants to pull me back, so I really have to stabilize my core to get that knot to pull. So I hope that you find these exercises helpful and a little different from what you've been doing. They're great exercises to do at home, and you really don't need any equipment. The bands are helpful because they provide resistance through the movement, not just add weight to the movement. And it's really important that core and form are what you're really focused on. So thank you.